We're going to be taking a look on pages Access 94 and 95, which is entitled to Create Mailing Labels. After watching this video, you should be able to create a report of labels and to print specific pages of a report. Mailing labels are often created to apply to envelopes, postcards, or letters when assembling a mass mailing. They have many other business purposes too, such as applying them to paper file folders or name tags. Any data in your Access database can be converted into labels using the Label Wizard, a special report wizard that precisely positions and sizes information for hundreds of standard business labels. Now, using the same file, the same Quest Travel D file that we have been working with earlier, in which we created our Tours by State report, we're going to continue working on and creating these mailing labels. So in step 1, it tells us that we want to click the Customers table in the navigation pane. And then it tells us we want to click on the Create tab. And then we want to click the Labels button in the Reports group. Now the first Label Wizard dialog box opens. The Filter by Manufacturer list box provides over 30 manufacturers or labels. Because Avery is the most common, it is the default choice. With the manufacturer selected, your next task is to choose the product number of the labels you will feed through the printer. The cover on the box of labels you are using provides this information. In this case, we are going to be using the Avery 5160 labels, which is a common type of sheet labels used for mailings and other purposes. So to use the Avery 5160 labels, what we're going to do is that the Avery is by default already filtered by the manufacturer. We're going to scroll down, and this is step 2, we're going to scroll down through this product list until we get to the 5160. So we're just going to continue scrolling on down. And here we go, we get to the 51 and there's the 5160 right there. And like I said, this is a very common type of label. Once we have this on there, we're going to click on that. Of course, that's if it's not already selected. Now, of course, note by selecting a product number, you're also specifying the dimensions of the label and the number of columns. And of course, you want to pay close attention to that because right now you're telling your printer what type of labels you have, how big they are, and how many is in each row on there. And without this information, correct information, it's not going to print appropriate. Once we have that, we move on to step 3, and it tells us that we want to click on our next button. And then, of course, this information, we're going to keep it the same. Of course, you could change your font, could change your size here, color, and the font weight, but we're going to keep everything default on here. So we're going to click on Next. And then, on here, of course, the third question of the Label Wizard asks us how we want to construct our labels. And of course, this is going to be the important part that we need to focus on now. Now you'll add the fields from the Customers table with spaces and line breaks to pattern a standard mailing format. And of course, to do this, we're going to use these available fields over here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to double click the F name. So that's going to be our first name. And then we're going to hit our space bar. So we're going to have our first name, space, and then we're going to double click last name. After that, we're going to press our Enter key to move on down to the second line, and then we're going to double click the street. Then we're going to press our Enter key again to move on down to the next line, and then we're going to double click city, and then we're going to type in a comma because this is the proper address format that you would use when mailing somebody. So you would put in city, comma, space, so you would hit your space bar, and then you would double click on state, then you would hit your space bar again, and then you would double click on zip. Now, if your prototype label doesn't look exactly like this, or doesn't look like figure D19 out of the textbook, or D18 out of the textbook, excuse me, delete the fields in the prototype label box and try again. Now be careful to put a space between the first name and last name fields in the first row, and a comma and a space between the city and state fields, and a space between the state and zip fields as well. Now once we have this, we want to click on Next because we've built our label. This is how it's going to look. So we click on Next, and then we want to double click the last name because this asks us which fields would we like to sort by. So we're going to sort by the last name. Then we're going to click on Next, and of course ask us what would we like to name our report. We're going to keep this as Labels Customers, and that's going to be fine. And we're going to see the labels as they would look if they were printed. And to do this, we're going to click on Finished. And then of course it may prompt us up here that some of the data may not be displayed, and that is okay. We're going to go ahead and click on OK here, and of course now you'll notice that we have all these labels. Now you can imagine a piece of paper that's through here in which these labels have they're got some glue behind them, and we can just peel these off and put them on an envelope. So you can imagine how much time this has actually saved us just by having all of our customer information input into our database, and how quickly we can actually access these labels. Now of course a portion of the new report is shown here and also on figure D19, and it's generally a good idea to print the first page of a report on standard paper to make sure that everything is aligned correctly before printing on labels, because a regular piece of paper is much cheaper than printing on a piece of label paper. And you can always hold them up and try to line it up to make sure that it is going to line up properly. That's on there as well. Now of course a quick tip, in this case all data is displayed. Now this message reminds you to of course that's when the little box pops up that some of the data may not be displayed, and that message reminds you to carefully preview the data to make sure that long names and addresses fully display within the constraints of the label dimensions. And of course now, I'm not going to request that you print this out, but make sure that you do save this report that's on there. If you were going to print this out, you would go to the print button, and then of course you would print in just page 1. However, we're not going to print out this page 1. So you can just click on Cancel, and you can close the print preview, but then save this Labels Customers. So you can just click on your Save button and keep that report that is on there. Then you can go ahead and close out this database, and now you are ready to upload this database to Course Sites so that you can receive your credit for the walkthrough. And that concludes the series of videos about the Access 2013 Unit D. You're ready to move on to the assignments.